All right, we're recording.
All
All
right,
right,
I'm still snapping these pics.
it's all good. You don't gotta do it now. You don't gotta
Okay.
send it. Yeah, you.
I'm
It's
gonna make
like
it
I'm
weird
not gonna
right
post
now.
this immediately. I'm not gonna post this
Okay.
immediately because
I
we're
thought
gonna
that's what
do
you
the
meant. Like you
recording.
were gonna throw them up. I was
No,
like,
no,
that's
no, no. I
impressive.
can't. I
Wait,
can't. I
what?
can't do that during the thing. At least not that I know of. I just started using the software, but we I'll probably take this and break it up into several little videos. More likely than not, because it'll cover a couple topics. But we'll go ahead and get started anyway. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, I have the distinct pleasure of being joined by two people that go back to my childhood days, Kai and Kayla, and we will be discussing the. I was about to say the dark side of Christian fundamentalism, but I mean the whole thing is dark. There's no light side to this whatsoever. So I don't know why I would bother making that distinction. But I think you guys are coming on. I think this will be a productive conversation / conversations that we can have. And before we get started, I'll give you a little chance to introduce yourselves. Just a short intro, telling us your name, where you guys went to Christian schools, and you know just a short synopsis of the ones you attended. For example, I'll give you like my name's TJ. I know you guys all know that, but
Heyo.
I went to Maranatha Baptist Academy as for high
Oh,
school.
heck yeah.
Wild, right? And I went to Maranatha Baptist Bible College, no relation, same name, but the schools are not related whatsoever
Wow.
in Wisconsin. And yeah, that's my experience. I think you guys attended a few more than I did. We'll start with Kai. Where did you attend Christian schools?
I attended school in Connecticut, and in Georgia, but they were Christian schools, not IFB Christian schools. And I think it's important to make that like distinction between the two. Because I think that there are incredible Christian schools that do things right. And then I think the IFB doesn't. Because if I had kids, like I would send them to the Christian school I went to in Georgia because it was top notch. Like I couldn't say an unkind thing about it if I tried. But then we moved to Missouri and we somehow found ourselves in Maranatha, obviously, where you two went. And then we were homeschooled, but we played volleyball for Landmark Baptist Church and attended that church and school in Rolla. So only two that were like IFB problematic.
All right. You mentioned Landmark. I was like, man, where is that? It was in
I was
Raleigh.
about to
That's
say, you
right.
mentioned Landmark too.
Yeah, I was like, man, I know that church. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kayla, how about yourself?
Oh, we're gonna come back to Landmark. I kind of forgot about that too.
Me too.
Oh
It was a good
well.
time.
Okay, so I gotta get out notes for mine, guys.
It's all right. It's all right.
I'm gonna be way less formal than you guys, because I'm nervous. But my name's Kayla. We already said that. I started out in Maranatha, so we were just talking about this on before we got on. But I was like picked up part of a bus ministry of some sort around like 1998 and all that stuff. So I was in and out of Maranatha, but we did that through like 2000, and then 2000 to 2001, my family moved to Fort Bragg. And then I did attend some of those more like kind of normal schools, and I'm glad you did make that distinction, Kai, because there are some that are like they're pretty chill. They're fine. Like Village Christian Academy in Fayetteville, I attended that. It was pretty okay at the time. I did another one, Berean Baptist Academy. I have a list. Back to Maranatha, Northview in Fayetteville, North Carolina. That one's definitely IFB. You'll have to let me like get these distinctions later, but that's just a few of them. And then I was sent away. My parents gave up custody of me in 2006 and sent me to this place called the Shenandoah Haven for Girls. Yeah, you have to like, it's a custody thing. It's a lot of money too to give up custody of your kid, and then it's like
They
a
gave up custody of you, like legally. They
Yeah,
I
were
don't
your.
understand. I need to clarify that I have not like seen the paperwork and stuff like that. My mom feels like she definitely has it. A lot of this information I'm going to share with you about the Haven is just us comparing notes, but like I'm 90% sure that there was some kind of like, yeah, because they moved us up.
It's like a power of attorney.
Yeah, I came from Leavenworth, Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, to Tennessee for that. So and my parents returned to Leavenworth. So there had to be some kind of custody agreement in place. But yeah, I was there for 2006, 2007. I was 16, 17 years old. And then my parents brought me back. But instead of going home to Kansas, we had been moved duty stations because my family was military. So then we were back to Bragg, and I had finished high school, but I never got a high school diploma from anyone. No one gave me a high school diploma. So I had to, I was already enrolled or could start taking college classes, but the IFB group or church that we were at there, Northview, was like, well, we're not going to let her just take, 2 or 3 classes a day. She's going to have to go like 8 hours a day and redo her senior year. So that didn't last long. I did get expelled from there as well. And then I don't really know how I was able to just continue on in college. I don't want to like ruin my.
That's what I was going to ask.
I want to be really careful here because I did transfer colleges a lot. But there is a lot of question for me about that, which I just thought would be a great thing to talk about because it's something that they brought up in the program, which I know like that's on Netflix, and I just think it's going to get a lot of attention. So like this stuff goes on, and it does all tie together into like how do they get these kids like in like IFP communities and stuff like that. So I wanted to mention that, but yeah, that's my story, a little bit of it. I feel. Y'all go ahead, take the show now.
Yeah, so a couple things. Kayla, I know when you went to college, I know you went to Bob Jones University as well.
I forgot about Bob Jones.
I forgot you went to Bob Jones.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
after I went to Clearwater.
So yeah, I was able to transfer. I was at a legit college in Fayetteville, and then I was still like I came out of the Haven, like really wanting to like be about that life and like wanting to follow and try to give whatever my parents wanted for me a chance. So I applied to Bob Jones University. I did get into that. And at that point I was scared about my diploma. I knew I had an issue, obviously at minimum, and I wanted to go to like a real university, and I didn't know how that was going to happen. So I went from community college in my hometown and then to Bob Jones University for a semester. And I went to Bob Jones for 2 reasons. That was the only way my parents were going to sign over the title to my car. And that was the only way I could think that I was going to be able to transfer to another university without, going through what I went through at minimum. I don't know. I do.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was that. But yeah, Bob Jones was so fun. I had a lot of fun at Bob Jones.
I can only imagine. Yeah. So Kai, you said you went to Clearwater.
I did.
How was that experience? How would you? Oh wait, before you continue, I wanna interject for anyone who doesn't know. We've said the term IFB a few times. IFB stands for Independent Fundamental Baptist, and if you're unfamiliar with it, it's so Independent Fundamental Baptist churches are churches that are not constrained by the bounds of like a Presbyterian system. There's no like chain of authority. There's no, popes or anything that dictate the rules for this industry. It's not even like Southern Baptist where there's like conventions, whatever. They're their own little islands of churches that basically follow a similar, set of doctrine, sola scriptura and belief in, the deity of Christ, the Trinity. Like they're all going to be pretty much the same. It's not radically different than Southern Baptist, but the pastor is essentially a king because he runs everything in that organization, and it has all the misogyny, the racism that everything else has, but it's there's a lot less scrutiny because of how it, and then these branch off into own little sub ministries like schools and universities that they start that's run by the same stuff. So I wanted to clarify that for anyone who didn't know. But Kai, how would you describe your Clearwater experience?
I loved going to Clearwater. So for me, Clearwater was so.
I was so shocked about that.
Didn't see that coming.
I didn't either. I didn't mother my mouth. Did you?
My brother went to Clearwater. Just so you, by the way, just so you know. So that's.
Did he?
What year was he there?
This would have been probably I graduated in 2000, so like probably 2004 to 8 or 5 to 9, something like that.
Oh, so before he must have graduated the year before I got there. So for me, Clearwater, I wouldn't say is IFB. I would say because it's regionally it's accredited, like they allow their women to be in any of the major programs, like the educational programs, like a lot of the Bible colleges that are IFB, like Hyles Anderson and West Coast and Maranatha, like you can either be like teaching or secretary degrees. Like they don't let their women, at least not when I was researching what schools to go to, when I was still forced to be under that IFB umbrella.
No, you're right. Because I was about to ask you that. Like, what were your options? So you're right. They weren't at the other one.
Anything I wanted: physical therapy, biology, math, journalism, psychology. Literally anything that they had program wise, I could do. Like it wasn't set to like any kind of thing. And honestly, I think you could.
Because at Maranatha, there weren't a lot of restrictions on what women could do, except that one. Like I remember that women couldn't be, because in our sect of belief, women couldn't pastor a church. They could study Bible, although I don't remember any of them actually doing it. But for us, we had a church ministries major, which was essentially learning how to teach a Sunday school class or make activities at church, and it was all women. It was all women, and a degree I found kind of useless, because you could do all that stuff just by starting to work at church right away at 18 and get paid for it. But that's the one I remember at Maranatha. That was the only one that women couldn't do, was pastoral studies.
I don't think, okay, it's been a long time. I don't think Clearwater had a pastoral studies. I think they had Bible, and I think they had like divinity, and but I think that girls could study Bible. They could be like, I know girls that did. So I don't know. I don't want to say one way or another and be wrong.
Yeah.
But I don't remember ever them being like, women, your place is in the home. Like, you're supposed to be barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen. Like,
it was definitely not IFB then. It was definitely not.
No. And I was raised so strict that the rules at Clearwater seemed like
I had to be like, you were having a really good time. That makes a lot of sense now. Coming from your house.
So like for me, like the rules that they had at Clearwater were so less strict than what I experienced in my own life, and how at 18, I knew nothing about the world, because nothing was ever talked about, like sex, drugs, alcohol, like none of that was ever discussed. And so I think for me being at Clearwater, it was fine. Like it didn't bother me. Like,
what was like the uniform there? Can I ask that? Is that okay? I'm sorry. I'm just wondering. I want to know. I can't remember.
Girls, I think to class you had to wear skirts. So I know that they started getting more and more like less strict, less conservative. When I went, you had to wear skirts to class, and they had to come like to the bottom, at least to the top of your knee when you sat down. But they weren't going around with like a ruler checking. I think you could wear sleeveless. I mean, obviously, like still like you couldn't show cleavage, like however many fingers down, but it wasn't like you could wear shorts and pants and stuff outside of class. And so it was more like, I mean, you weren't supposed to wear bikinis at the beach, but like they couldn't enforce it when you were off campus. I mean, unless someone saw you and ratted you out, but no one did that.
The fucking Wild West out there in Clearwater, no rules at all. Yeah, I do like this idea that you guys could go to the beach and wear swimsuits, but not a bikini. So like 4 extra inches of fabric is what separates you from morality. It's insanity.
You can't be the reason that men sit in TJ.
Of course, right? Yeah. So Kayla, you went to Bob Jones. Now, what year did you start going to Bob Jones?
That's a good question. Let me see. It had to have been probably 2008, 2009. I think it was. I'll have to check with my friend.
No, that's all right. No, I was just curious because so I don't know if you guys are old enough to remember this, but back in 2000, when it was the Republican primary, and George Bush was running against John McCain, and one of them, I think it was Bush, spoke at Bob Jones University during you were lead up to this. So there became this huge international scandal because Bob Jones University still had like a rule on the books that interracial dating was outlawed in the school. And in the year
that's right.
in the year 2000. And so, of course, people are like, are you kidding me? I can't believe you spoke at the school. And the public pressure forced Bob Jones III to come out and say, okay, we've changed the rules now. Now interracial dating is allowed as long as both parents sign a piece of paper saying they're okay with it. And I was in college at Maranatha at the time. And I remember people talking about how, oh, people say Bob Jones is racist and it's not. And I say, okay, wait a minute. Yeah, they are. And the argument they would make was that Bob Jones, like the interracial dating rule wasn't racist because it equally applied to every race. It's like, yeah, so black people can't date white people, yeah, but hey, white people can't date black people either. So, it's not really racist. And I said, okay, let's go over the history of Bob Jones. That's really what they said. And
Yeah,
I just
I believe it.
yeah, I just very simply laid out the timeline here that Bob Jones Sr. starts Bob Jones University in like the 50s or 40s or whatever. And the rule back then was no black people were allowed at all, could not attend. In fact, Martin Luther King wanted to attend Bob Jones University, odd point, but he couldn't because he was black. And it wasn't until, they were forced to integrate that they had to allow black students. Like Bob Jones didn't allow their first black student until 1971. If I remember correctly, it was 1971. And when they made that rule, they said, okay, black students can attend, but only if they're married. And they allowed I'm pretty sure the first black student at Bob Jones was a woman who worked there who was married. And so they allowed her in. And then, that was illegal. You can't do that. And so they were threatened with losing a bunch of tax breaks and everything. So they were forced to allow black students to attend Bob Jones University. And they said, okay, so black students can attend, but there's no interracial dating. And then, 20 years later, they break those. So here's the timeline. So Bob Jones says, black people can't come to our school. Okay, they can come to the school, but only if they're married. Okay, they can come if they're single, but they can't date us. And all right, fine, I guess we'll allow you to date us, but only with parental permission. Do you see how that seems just a little bit racist? And like, oh, okay, I guess it is. Like, why did it take me explaining that to you? But that's the culture we lived in. But so it wasn't quite as radical when you got there, Kayla, but I imagine it was still pretty bad.
It's interesting to me because a lot of times when I talk about Bob Jones with people that I grew up with in the IFB community, we always still point out that Bob Jones was like secular. Bob Jones was like the cool one,
What?
There was nothing. Yeah, I have this experience all the time. That and Pensacola. Like, I don't know what was so cool about Bob Jones and Pensacola to everybody because we were not living like y'all thought we were. Sorry, but yeah, it was
than Bob Jones.
Yeah, so Pensacola I can see. Bob Jones I can't. Like Bob Jones, but they had. So I was at Bob Jones. No, I mean, I never went to Bob Jones, but I think I remember it's in South Carolina, right? Greenville, South Carolina.
Greenville, South Carolina.
So I remember. Yep. I went to China one year. Long story, but
okay.
So we were, it was with a Baptist group, and like we met on like Bob Jones campus for something, like just for a meeting or something like that.
It's a pretty impressive campus too. Like
it is. And one of the buildings there was Bibb Graves was the name of one of the buildings, and Bibb Graves was a Klansman. Like the building is named after a Klansman. I was like, all right, what are we doing here, folks? Like,
and there was so few racial just there was a lot of white kids there even when I was there. And to your point about when they integrated and the rules and the dating for anybody that wasn't white, even in my time, like I do know that we were allowed to have, we were allowed to date, whatever. I feel weird even saying it, but like
it's weird, right?
It was really watched. I can think of one couple. I can think of one while I was there, and it was almost like, they were really encouraged to go on their dates, like at our little snack shops. And I feel like it was all because we had to be in public. We weren't allowed to like be alone with the other gender at all. We had separate sidewalks still for boys and girls. Like we had weird meal hours. I had to, I don't want to take credit for all these memories, but I had to like reference or call up my roommate from Bob Jones, and she was actually expelled and I wasn't. And how I made it through, when I tell you more about my experience, it's going to make you laugh, I guess, guys. But she got expelled because we had like 155 demerit system and all this stuff, but we couldn't go eat at any time. Like girls had weird sidewalk hours, so we weren't just allowed to like go to the cafeteria and get snacks if we needed to. We were both talking about just like how hungry we were. We were hungry, and like we lived in the dorm like right next to the cafeteria too. So just it was rough. It was rough about how my experience was.
Wait a minute.
Go ahead.
You had sidewalk rules. So when you said sidewalk rules, I remember Maranatha so on campus, there was like at the very edge of campus, there was this long stretch of road that led to this, apartment, like a housing development, like a couple miles back. It was a perfect running stretch, and so people ran on it all the time. And there was a rule that girls weren't allowed to run on that road alone after dark or something. That was one of the rules they had. Like if you were a girl, you wanted to run, you had to run with somebody else. And that's what I thought you were talking about. But you said, like, you mean on campus? You couldn't walk on campus at certain what?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to like I cannot tell you more than that really, but yeah, like we definitely I don't want to misquote it. Like I'm literally scared to like say it wrong and then have like Bob Jones.
No, you're right.
And be like, actually, we never had that.
Like,
but
nope,
no, like we had sidewalk rules. I'm not tripping, and yeah, my roommate said it too. But it really restricted our lives to the point where yeah, like I don't want to put anybody else's like information out there, but like I know that there were girls in my dorm room or dorm hall, area that were struggling with like eating disorders and stuff like that. And it was because of not only like whatever they may or may not have been bringing out of their own lives and experiencing just in general, but because of all this other stuff, like the rules, it was a lot. It was hard. So
Kai,
I don't know how it is now, like, but it was really rough.
So Kai, what's your so you seem fairly confident. What's your familiarity with these sidewalk rules? This is new to me. I never heard anything like this. This is wild.
So I was homeschooled, on and off throughout my life, and my parents used the Bob Jones curriculum to homeschool us. Yeah, and we'll just leave it at that. And I we went to family camp at BJU every summer, and then they have like their high school program that they do. I don't know how they do it now, but when I was in high school over a decade ago, you could come back if you were in the education program. You could come for like weeks at a time in the summer and like get experience in different career fields or whatever, and then you could get like high school credit for it. So they would have like criminal justice camp and theater camp and whatever. So I spent several summers at Bob Jones. I actually don't know why I didn't go there, and I picked Clearwater. I think Clearwater was the only one that accepted me because again, I had a homeschool diploma, but like I will say Bob Jones, like high school academics were pretty rigorous, like math and science and stuff was all pretty like solid, at least for me. Like I was able to go on and be successful in college, and Clearwater was accredited. So I spent a lot of time at Bob Jones growing up. And then the Christian school I went to in Georgia, we would have fine arts competitions at Bob Jones during the school year and stuff. So we would go to the college once or twice. I don't remember, once or twice a year. So we would see the school when it was in, but like that was like 2003, 2004. And so we would like see the students and we're familiar with the campus, or it was only 3 hours from where we were living in Atlanta. So if we wanted to go to the Fine Arts Museum or any of that stuff, we would go to Bob Jones and do it. So you're not incorrect about the sidewalks.
That is
and
wild.
Like guys and girls could only walk on certain
sidewalks. I do. I want to just mention as well that Bob Jones has all kinds of programs they're so in these schools. There's the school, they're way ahead of these families that they can't, as far as how they're getting kids to still go. They have all kinds of programs like that. And I know so many people that have visited the campus, before in childhood like that. That's cool.
I have so many memories of Bob Jones, like the snack shop, like all of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
snack shop was pretty kind of lit. It was pretty
some
cool.
of my best, like it's fundamentalist, right? But like some of my best summer memories as a kid came from Bob Jones camps. Like I had so much fun. And it was a chance to get away from like my family and like to do something else. Like it was fun. It was a good time. But I didn't have to go to school there, so it's
true.
Take that with what you will.
I only went for a semester, by the way, guys. I only went for a semester.
I thought you went longer. One semester.
No.
Okay.
No, Kayla didn't make it very long.
I didn't. I was done. I mean, I made through it the semester. Like, I just want to say that, but I was really proud of that at the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I only went.
I'm so proud of you.
Yeah. Kudos. I didn't know it was. But I want to say I have never heard of men and women having to walk on different sidewalks or have different hours for sidewalks. I'm struggling to think what the point of that rule is. I really don't know. And I don't know if it was like this for you guys. Wait, did you guys ever? Yeah, you went to Maranatha. The school we had when we took the bus to like go to the gym.
I was just about to say.
Okay, yeah. So like the boys,
it was like
and
girls in the front and boys in the back.
Yes.
Really? So, when I was there, it was like boys on one side, girls on the other. It wasn't front and back.
Oh no!
It was
either way, we were not getting anywhere near each other.
I guess.
And it had the teachers that would like sit in the middle, and it was the same when I went to Landmark. Like, it was the same. Like,
wow.
I think that you're right.
Wow, I've never seen that anywhere else. That is insanity. Yeah. But the sidewalk rule, like I'm struggling to even find like a justification. Because look, all right, fine. I can put myself in the head of these, like, I don't want these boys and girls sitting together in these seats and canoodling or whatever word they would use or something like that. But sidewalks, I don't know. I got no idea what's going on with that. But it does kind of go into like, so I want to talk to you guys specifically about this. Well, not specifically, but in generally, is that I talk a lot about how just virulently racist the IFB community is. It is really bad. That being said, the sexism is even worse because it is a lot worse. And trust me, folks, it's really fucking racist. But that would just tells you how, because like you would find like they'd say like the soft, it's like this soft bigotry or something that they kind of peddle out. Very rarely did you find someone who was, just an open and proud racist, but they would say stuff like, man, these black folk, if only the dads would stay and take care of their families, it'd be all right. And I wish black people would pull their pants up, stuff like that, or the stay away from our women and stuff like that. But for the women though, it was like, no issue at all, because we mentioned before how by their doctrine women were not allowed to be preachers, they were not allowed to be song leaders, women were not allowed to teach a Sunday school class in which men were students. The only thing women could do, they could teach other women and they could teach children. That is it. It didn't go if it came to any position of teaching or preaching or anything like that. And there was no shame in this, none whatsoever. And I've mentioned I can't remember who I was talking to, another person that I went to college with, I was talking to the other day, and I was saying that not only is it bad for how they treat the adult women, like people who are supposedly equal, to the men in the church, but the way it raises up young girls to essentially just guarantee that they are going to be sexually abused, or at the very least taken advantage of, at the very least, because there's this horrifying fear of just the concept of sexuality, and they want to keep it out of your mind as much as possible. So when something does happen, you don't know what's going on, which is why I'm rambling here. Sorry. This is why I wonder so much about. Oh, sorry, Kayla, what were you gonna say?
I just said that part, that they don't know what's going on. I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you're rambling, because that's exactly what it is. And yeah.
So whenever you see these people talking about how they don't want sex education in the schools, sex education is poisoning the mind of our youngsters, it's bullshit. Like, this is the reality. The reality is that sex education has been proven to comprehensive sex education has been proven to lower the rates of teen pregnancies, lower the rates of STIs, lower the rates of sexual assault. And because you know what's going on. Like, if you're a child and you have no clue what sex is, and someone sexually assaults you, you're like, okay, well, that was weird. I don't know what that was. You don't know what to talk about. And it works every single time it's tried, every time. And by the way, the earlier you start, the better your results get. And people will still fight against it. And their answer is, well, my objection is that it's icky. And I'm sorry, that's not going to work. Like, that's not going to fly. We need to have this done. And you'll have people. I've talked to several people. I don't know if you guys are among this number, and I want to ask, but volunteer. But I talked to several people who just didn't know what sex was, like didn't know what procreation was. They didn't understand any of it until they were like in their early 20s. Like, they had to find out outside of school because their parents didn't tell them, their school didn't tell them, their church told them sex was bad, but they didn't know what the fuck it was. And it's pervasive, and it guarantees, like, not just girls but boys too, but especially girls. That's something that bugs me the most about this.
Yeah.
I think purity culture is horrible. Like, I think that directly ties into the sexism in the IFB, right? Like, and I think, I mean, it's bad for boys too, but I really think girls from a young age are like given the brunt of that to carry, and they don't realize it. Like, as someone who grew up in the IFB, I don't even know how my family got into the IFB, because my parents weren't raised in church. Like, they were Lutheran, but they like only went on holidays. So like, as a girl who grew up in it, like, you're taught from a young age that like you don't show, like, you need to cover your whole body. Like, if you wear something that's inappropriate, you're going to cause inappropriate. You show your above your kneecap or your shoulders, like, oh no, you're causing a man to sin. And if you sin, that's your fault, because you need to not be a stumbling block. And so from a young age, if all you're taught is that you're only capable of being a wife and a mom, and like, you're there to serve your husband, and rape doesn't exist in marriage, right? Like, because you should just do whatever your husband tells you to do. And like, you should be excited for that. Like, I think sexism and purity culture go hand in hand. And I think when girls are taught from a young age, right? Like, I was, when we were catching up before this, like, you're not taught about sex or drugs or alcohol or like anything, just that it's bad, but not why is it bad, or what are the consequences of doing some of these things, right? It's just out of sight, out of mind. So you don't know what's happening to you and stuff that shouldn't be. And then if something does happen to you, oh, well, it was probably your fault. You were probably asking for it. You were probably wearing the wrong thing. Oh, like, boys would never like just do it unprovoked. Like, going back to Maranatha, I was in 7th grade, and one of the students, because Christian churches, I should say IFB schools, like to take in kids kicked out by the public school because it's a ministry. And there was like a boy who, he was a junior or senior, and I don't know I think we were putting balls back after one of the games we went to, and like, he pulled his pants down and exposed himself in front of me, and I was 12 years old, maybe 13, and I went home and told my dad. And I will say, like, my dad always believed me, and we went to the pastor, and my dad was like, my daughter is saying that this happened, like, this isn't okay, like, you need to handle it, like, they're minors, like, this isn't acceptable. And he was like, oh, she's probably lying. Like, the pastor accused me of lying and was like, the students in our school would never do that. And my dad was like, well, my daughter doesn't even know what that is, and she's not lying. Like, I believe her. And that's why I was pulled out of Maranatha, and we were still involved playing volleyball and stuff. But I feel like I
do think I kind of remember that drama a little bit. I remember, I remember the drama around like you having, the homeschool thing and all that. There was always like, when somebody got pulled out to be homeschooled, there was always some drama. That was always in the back pocket. That was always there. I don't know about you. But that was always there. Yeah.
But yeah, I think the sexism and the purity culture, it's rampant. And not in like, again, like, I want to reiterate, I'm not talking about all churches. I'm just talking about the IFB for now, because that was my experience, Yeah. That,
Same.
15 out of 10 don't recommend.
Yeah, no. For me, it was like, definitely, it was just shame and confusion. There was definitely no like clear course on, even when, like, it was not going to be appropriate for us to know anything about our bodies or about sex or about anything until our husbands explained it to us. That is what I was taught. So, and that's scary.
And I remember,
that's dangerous on so many different levels. And that's still, I think, like, going on. I'm sorry, Kai, go ahead. What did you say, babe?
No, I remember, now that you say that, someone close to me, I remember I would ask, like, what sex was or like about it, or I would ask questions, right? Because you're a teenager, you're curious anyways. And especially I feel like when you're homeschooled or if you're in an IFB church, like your circle is so small and you're taught that like any secular thing like is just not of God and it's not good for you, and public school is bad. So like your only circle of friends and exposure believe all the same thing you do. So it's funny that you said that, because I remember a friend of mine got married and she still didn't know what sex was, and her mom tried to explain it to her the night before her wedding.
That was so rude. I'm sorry.
No,
I was laughing at our facial expressions, guys. I was watching DJ.
No, listen. Yesterday, I kid you not, yesterday I was talking to a girl I went to college with, and it's funny saying girl because we're 40 years old. It's weird. Like, I don't know. It's like the language gets weird like that, because like I saying a woman or something makes it sound like I'm talking to like someone who's really old. But it's like, oh yeah, we are. But it's weird. But I went to college with her, and she was telling me this exact story. So she got married. I think she was 22, 23, and they were having premarital counseling. So this is a big thing in IFB churches, folks, that if you want to get married.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, it's a big thing.
Yes, it was.
They make a huge deal. It's like, don't you dare ask me to marry you unless you both come to my office twice a week and sit down.
Have you even talked to my pastor yet? Are you kidding me?
Right?
Save it for my pastor. Okay.
It's so funny. It's so funny. Yeah. And so she was saying that she went in for the counseling or whatever. It was the pastor and the pastor's wife, and they were talking to both of them, whatever. And she asked, because look, this is what we talked before. She said, so how exactly do we have sex? Like, how does this work? But the grown woman, like 22 years old. And the pastor started like just talking about the morality of sex or something. She goes, all right, I got that, but how does it work? Like what happens? And she said the pastor's wife got really uncomfortable and stuff. And she was so frustrated. She said, okay, what, isn't this a big deal? Like, this is the reason we're getting married a lot of times. That's why they get married so young, because they're so horny, but they don't know what to do. And so that's true. It happens more frequently than I even realized, because I've talked to several people which honestly is weird to me, but it happens. Yeah.
Yeah, it does. And I know that like talking to your church or your pastor is not, I don't want to say that, like Kyrene said, it's a bad thing every time, but in a lot of these circumstances, it was super weird and super bad. And there's so many kids that I know that the same story. You're right. Like it just, and also I wanted to circle back to one thing that you said, TJ, because I want to pick your brain sometime about what your experience was, because you're right, like the sexism was so bad, but it was just, and to bring it back to Bob Jones too, like that's what's scary to me about Bob Jones. That's what's scary to me about a lot of these places. It's just like this like fish pool of all these people that, like, you know, maybe they're not letting other people in, but for good, bad, right or wrong, it's just a lot of people that look like us, and we're talking about these same things, and you know, it's terrible. It's a lot to figure your way through. But the purity culture, we could talk about that for like literally hours, and everything that you guys just said. I've just been listening to you guys both, like just over here with goosebumps, like, wow, you guys get it, you know?
Yeah.
But
do you remember do you remember the stupid object lessons that they would do when it came to purity culture? Did you ever experience these? And it was like, I think we did one time, and it was this, we had this crazy youth pastor in Landmark, and he like had these 2-liter soda bottles, and he like cut like what looked like a bra and underwear out of wrapping paper and took off the label of the 2-liter bottle.
I remember this one. This was not only there, because
I haven't seen this one. This is a new one. This is oh my god.
Yeah, go on.
So you have like the 2-liter, and he took the label off, so you couldn't see like what kind of soda it was, and then he cut out like a bra and underwear out of like wrapping paper. I swear that they had like conventions for youth pastors, like to get all on the same page. And then he put them on the bottle, and he made the comparison that, like, when you're scantily clad, when you're dressing immodestly, that everyone can see what's on the inside. And then it takes, like, the magic out of it. Or, like, when they would hand around a white rose and be like, everyone touch this. Oh, well, this is what it's like if you're having sex before marriage. No one's going to want you because no one wants a dirty rose. Yeah. Or, like, the broken teacup. And, like, you can't put it back together. And, like,
God, that was a big one. The other horrible thing about it. The tea outings with that. It was, like, so much up to, like, shatter you with this example with the teacup, too.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It was a lot. Yeah. And, like, you mentioned just now the whole thing with, can you repeat what you just said about before the teacup, the other example? I'm sorry. Can you repeat that example?
Soda bottle, the rose?
The one in between, the rose one. Oh, and also, Kai, like, about how they pass people, the conventions, like, they pass around. The IFB tends to, like,
shuffle people around.
It's not even that they're going to a convention. It's just that they're, like, rotating. I got totally hyped and sidetracked. TJ, you're going to have to edit that part out right there. I got really excited. I'm sorry.
I look over right to me.
But in, like, when we went to Landmark, I feel like Landmark was even stricter than Maranatha, to be honest. Landmark, they used to have singing groups from Hiles Anderson and West Coast and Maranatha, and everyone, like, come. And it was basically like, because my parents would always have, like, the girls group stay at our houses. And I remember them, like, you know, be like, oh, what'd you study? Blah, blah. Because, like, do you remember, I don't know if Kayla had this experience, but, like, when these singing groups would come and then they would, like, take the guys and they would take the girls separate so you could, like, ask questions or, like, get up. Because heaven forbid you're all together in one group.
Haven.
Oh, shit.
Were you?
Yeah, we went on tour. We have a CD. It's called Press On. Heaven's not so far away. Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah,
wow.
That's a dangerous situation for some college students, and let alone, you know, we'll talk about the kids later, but that's a dangerous situation for college students sometimes. I'm just saying. Like, weird.
It's all, like, so weirdly connected in the sexism and, like, purity culture. And I think it, like, I don't want to speak for Kayla, but as a female, I think that when you grow up and that's all that you know and that's all that you're taught and that's all that you, like, believe, I think it really, like, screws you up for the rest of your life because you're like, oh, wait, what? No one's going to want me if this happened. Oh, wait, if I do the wrong thing, like, how is some guy ever going to want to stay with me? Like, if I've kissed someone else or whatever the situation is. So I feel like it's so, like, got such a chokehold on women who are stuck in the IFB because they don't see a way out. And, like, everything that they've been taught their entire life is that their only job is to, like, serve their husband and raise kids, which also, if you're only ever taught that your value is being married and having children, then, like, if you haven't hit that by a certain age, you start to feel bad about your own life.
Yep.
Yes.
Like, oh, well, maybe something's wrong with me. Like,
Are
not,
you guys struggling with that too? Do we need to
it's
100%. And I'm like, I'm only 32. And I'm like, oh, well, I'm not, you know, I haven't met my person yet. Maybe he's not out there. Like, maybe this isn't supposed to be a thing. Like, what did I, you know, why does anyone want me? Is it because I've made mistakes? You know what I mean? Like, those kinds of questions, like, and I have other friends who, like, struggle with the same thing, but I feel like it's so, like, predatory to women. And, like, I will say, like, not in my own family because my dad would never hurt my mom or anything like that, but domestic abuse is totally rampant in the IFB and it's written off as okay because, oh, well, the wife probably wasn't listening or the wife didn't do what they wanted. Like, I distinctly remember at Landmark, my youth pastor at the time, his wife went home and changed, like, they lived like 20 minutes away, and his wife went home and changed her socks because he didn't like them. Socks.
All right.
A pair of socks.
So, okay.
So
I gotta go to this.
You can edit this out.
No. This is good because it actually goes into something I was going to mention about the weird. It's not even idiosyncratic. It's just like because it's pervasive. But how you not only create this environment. Before I say that, you mentioned how as a woman your value is based on. Your value is based on what you can provide to your husband, or it's based on how obedient you are to either your dad or your husband. So, no matter what, you belong to a man in some sense, and you don't have the gap in between there because the IFB believes until he gives you the altar. And
So like
and
you go
that's
from one to the other.
yeah, and it's bad enough that that's already kind of how it is in life anyway. Like that's how society kind of operates under a very similar paradigm, and it's just emphasized in this group. It's toxic in a lot of ways. But you mentioned did you say pastor or youth pastor that made his wife change socks? Was it? I guess it doesn't matter either way. But
Probably both. But
yeah,
I
so
distinctly
youth
remember the youth
pastors.
pastor.
Have you ever met anyone more sexually degenerate than youth pastors? Like it is.
No, actually,
They
hard no.
are like it is. Say what?
I said hard no. Nope.
Yeah, exactly.
And I traveled. I've been to all of these. Like that's a whole other. I'm sorry.
Yes, it is a particular type of weirdo that becomes a youth pastor, and I didn't realize.
I have to say, wait, I just feel like I need to make another caveat for this, though. Not all youth. I'm specifically talking about IFB youth pastors.
Yeah.
Because at the Christian school I went, because the one I went to in Georgia that I like swear by, like that.
We're not
youth
leader
at him,
okay? No, he's good.
No, I know, but
yeah, no, I know.
I know, but I feel like I just want to like make that clear. I don't think anyone's coming in them, but I think there are incredible youth pastors, but specifically within
there
the IFB.
There are some normal youth pastors out there. Okay,
hey,
I know. I don't want everyone to think.
Kai, I'm sure
do.
this man is a delight, but I got smoke for all youth pastors. I'm coming after every one of them. So look, till I meet one, till I meet one.
Get a job. What are you doing? Go on a jog, read a book, travel, hang out with your own kids. I don't care. Get out of the youth.
There are not everyone are bad.
Here's what, and the funny thing is, like, I had this thought in the back of my mind as a kid and as a young adult, but it wasn't solidified for me until social media, and I saw. Every other person I saw talking about youth pastors said the same thing or noticed the same thing I noticed. How often did you hear these guys talk about their smoking hot wives? They did it all the time. It's like, oh, you guys want to have sex, but I tell you what, it's worth waiting because I did, and I got my smoking hot wife here. And it's just was like, okay, why are you telling these children about how much you like to fuck your wife? That's weird. That's super strange. I felt uncomfortable with that as a kid, and apparently this is ubiquitous among youth pastors across the nation. So yeah, that's why I'm pretty confident in this, because I'm sure there's some great ones out there, but the ones I saw all kind of fit into this category.
All a little weird.
All a little bit weird.
All the ones that were great in my life were not IFB.
Okay.
Do that. I don't know. IFB youth pastors are trash. Like,
I have had some good, adult role models, a few within the IFB, especially school structure, because like if you hire enough not teachers, you're bound to fuck around and hire a good person once in a while. Yeah. So there were a few and we're not even saying in the IFB, it's not if you were there, it doesn't mean you're a bad person. And it goes back into, for me, the Haven. I can't hardly talk about that because it's weird for me to not feel like I'm throwing my parents under the bus, because I can tell you that my parents were victims. So it's the same kind of thing there when you think about it. These people, adults, were being conned as well. There were predators there, yes, and we saw the predators probably more clearly than anybody because we were children, and that's what kids do. But there were so many adults being conned as well.
Oh yeah. Oh yes. When it comes 1,000%. When it comes to people in this, the IFB is a cult. It is. I mean, it's weird that it's not called it enough because it's absolutely what it is. But there's two types of people. There are deceivers and the deceived. There's no third category. That's all it comes down to. You can be one or both, but there's no chance that you're neither. And one example you guys didn't mention, those were all great with the shaming you and not having a lot of sexual partners, is gum. That's one I heard a lot too. Is that would you want to? Yeah, would you want to, or sex at all? Yeah. Do you want to chew a piece of gum that 9 people have already chewed, and then they relating your body? And I remember another one talking about how sex was whipped cream, basically. Also, kind of like here, the fact they're going down this road, but I know,
couldn't put it back in the can.
You can't
put it back.
We had that, but it was with toothpaste.
Toothpaste.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god.
And at Maranatha was all right. So when I went to school at Maranatha, they still spanked kids. I don't know if they still do it anymore, but
I got spanked.
I did too.
When I was there. Yeah, they spanked
Look
me
at
a
us
lot.
delinquents.
I know. Look at it, and look how we turned out.
Me out. Yeah.
Say what, Kayla?
I said they wore me out. I don't know about y'all. Like, I was.
Did they make you lift your skirt up when you got spanked?
Well, yeah, because like I had been caught patting my skirt so many times because it was a lot. Like it was a thick. Kyrene, I'll let you. Do you remember what they spanked us with? Like, do you want to talk about that?
It was like a paddle. It was like this long.
It was a paddle. Okay,
yeah.
I don't know if we were gonna say this. Like it was a paddle.
But I mean,
and I got caught patting my my skirt with like feminine hygiene product and anything I could find. My baby sister's diapers. My baby sister was little, and so then they started patting me down. I didn't. Am I allowed to say the F word on here?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't give a fuck. I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna find a different way.
You don't have to yell it, Kayla.
Then they started lifting my skirt, and then it became a really like public affair too because
everyone knew.
Yeah, well, because I was like, bend me over, do it, like see if you can, like I got very combative at one point about it, and it took a few people, teachers, and it was a big thing, and I got whooped all the time. Yeah.
So I think my favorite thing about Kayla and I is how similar we both are, because like our sisters were so much more go with the flow, like didn't want to get in trouble, and Kayla and I were like the fuck around and find out kids. Like they would be like, you're gonna get more. I
was definitely the fuck around and find out kid. I gotta say for my sisters though, I just want to say this for mine. I don't know that my sisters were as chill about anything that they even seemed as children. Like I told y'all before, we were like, I've been unpacking shit. She felt like she felt like she could have been a totally different person. Like her personality could have developed differently had we not been at Maranatha at the time of her life when she was, because of the things that happened to her. And it wasn't that she was like go with the flow or quiet. It was that she was a terrified, very like 3, 4, 5-year-old. And
that's a better way of phrasing it.
Yeah. And we were a lot of like, we were all like, what is going on? Like in secret and
something is not right.
Yeah.
Something's not right.
When they would leave, did they ever, I know for Kayla and I, because they combined like 7th and 8th grade all the time. Yeah. TJ, when you went to Maranatha, did you ever get left alone in study hall for hours? Like,
oh yeah.
Do you remember that? We would just like
TJ, I remember you were so funny because you would be like performing and stuff. You would be putting on shows for the kids. Like you were funny. You were one of the funnier older kids. That's why I remembered you for all those years.
Well, it's the demagogue in me. I can't help it. It's my like it.
It's the demagogue in you.
It is. It is like I'm a natural. That's all I can do. It's like talk. Yeah. It's the only thing. So that's a personal story, but I'll well, I mean, so you know how we
that later.
It's just so much I want to cover. That's why I said there's no way we're going to cover all this, because there's so much I want to say about this. But so this is a personal story. It doesn't really have much to do with this, but I want to talk about. It's my show. I'll do whatever I want.
Yeah, you can do whatever you want. I want to hear it. Let's go.
So when I was I think in 9th grade, we would go to leadership camp. They would take the 9th, 10th, and 11th graders and 12th graders to leadership camp every school year, and so like most IFB kids, like I was really awkward and shy and everything. And I knew nothing about, how to talk to the opposite sex. And, girls never showed any interest in me. And I knew what sex was and everything. I was ahead of the game on that one, at least. I knew that and everything.
That makes one of us.
Yeah, I know, right? And so I remember we were supposed to put on this play, a sketch. Each school had to put on a sketch. And we drew up the sketch. It was like a courtroom sketch. And I really wanted to play the judge because I thought it was cool to be a judge. And Mr. Ragland said, nah, TJ, we want you to play the prosecutor. That more seems to fit your person. I was like, no, I don't want to be the prosecutor. But he made me do it. And so I was a prosecutor, and I just went up there and I told a bunch of jokes and I made it funny and everything. And after it was over, I remember like girls actually coming up to me and talking to me, and which was a brand new experience. And I was stunned. I couldn't believe it. And it was like it was the first time that I like talked to a girl and got her number and everything. So it was a formative experience in my life. And I was like, oh, okay, this performing thing. All right, this is kind of a where it started out for me. So like when you mentioned that, like, yeah, I realized that's kind of like where my wheelhouse was. But I wanted to say, you talk about the proclivities of these pastors. The guy with the socks, I forgot all about that story. But the spanking is what made me think about this, how a lot of their actions are like weirdly sexual. Like I got spanked as like a 10th grader. I mean, and when it happened, I remember thinking, when it was done, I kind of sat there, I was like, this is absurd. I just remember just like
I
stuff
got
like
spanked
that
at home all the way up to my senior year.
I got spanked at the Haven until like the day I left. Yeah. Like
your senior year, you got spanked at school?
Yeah. I got spanked you were at the
I got spanked at home.
Yeah, at home. I think, at home. I don't think I got spanked after like 12 or 13 or something like that, which made it so weird that I was getting spanked at 16 by my principal. I was like, what? So that I know it made it really strange and really weird. But so I don't know where to go next here. Oh, one thing I wanted to mention, you guys talking about women and how we're treated. So this is interesting how they put a whole lot of emphasis on women. Like the onus is on you to make sure men aren't perverted. You have to keep yourself in a burlap sack and, don't do anything that seems the slightest bit. And you're not even going to know what it is. And I remember there was this one time, like a girl in my school, she was like putting on socks or something, I think, like in the auditorium. And she was like, get out of here, go do that somewhere else. I was like, what could possibly it wasn't no years like, oh, okay, I get it. That was probably his thing. And that's what, but
probably.
Exactly. No one else. Like I couldn't even figure out what the problem was. But later I look back, I was like, I get it. I wish I could remember who did it because I'd say his name. I can't remember which teacher said it, but that kind of bothered me. But it is funny to me that they put all of this responsibility not just on like teenage girls, but on girls who were like 4 or 5,
Children.
I remember being like, also they treated like, I remember being treated terribly by grown women. I remember being like bullied in the church too, like passive aggressive, just like meanness as like a little girl, weird stuff like that. Yeah. I
think it was worse because Kayla and I are very similar. So I don't want to speak for Kayla, but I would say like if you showed any kind of like spirit and excitement and you weren't like a quiet little church mouse, it was worse by the grown women. Like they were like, you're really distracted. Stop. Like stop. Like you need to sit there and be quiet and
I misunderstood you. Okay, I see.
So I don't want to speak for Kayla, and I didn't mean to cut you off.
I mean, completely. I can support that in a lot of ways. Yeah. I remember at Northview, even like this was after the Haven and kind of in between the Haven and Bob Jones for me. I don't want to like speak for anybody, but the whole reason I got expelled was because of like a tattoo. But then also I remember in that meeting them mentioning that, and my dad was deployed at the time, and they mentioned that my mom had been wearing skirts to school to church that showed her kneecap when she sat down. And so in the midst of this like intense meeting where they were like telling me at this point, I was very grown. I was very done. I was like, you can tell me, sir, like, what's up? Are you going to give me this diploma or what? So to like segue into like shaming my mom there for a moment. And I remember being very aware that it was because my dad was gone too, that my dad was deployed, and that kind of like context of the conversation never would have happened if my stepdad had been present for that meeting. I know that. But yeah, it was always stuff like that. Every avenue, every corner, we were you need to be smaller, you need to be less, like you are here to make children. Yes. And that's so beautiful and that's great, what a blessing for you, but like please sit down and just do it.
Yeah.
So
it also, and it's a weird contradiction in their thought process, because they like to say this, how often do you hear it? Well, you got to understand girls mature faster than boys. Like they bring it up all the time and say, oh, well, you guys should know better. And, these boys are dumb. And so, but it's funny how whenever they say girls mature faster than boys, it always means that they need to, placate themselves and, or placate the opinions of men. It never means girls mature faster, so maybe they should be in charge for a while. Like that never happens. That's never the conclusion they come to, which I always
That's
found
a
pretty
crazy
interesting.
idea. Why would we do that?
Yeah,
Why would we do that?
yeah, it's kind of insane. It's kind of insane.
Yeah.
So what to pivot to here? Because I want to give out Kayla. I know you had a lot of notes you want to talk about a specific place that you went to, and I'll say we wrap it up like half an hour or more because I don't want it to go too long for us because it'll kind of drag on. But we're going to do several of these. But what's the one place that you had the most problems with? And can you give us an overhaul or just an overview of why exactly this place was so evil? She pulls out her notes.
I do have notes. Well, because what I was trying to explain earlier, and I wasn't doing it well, is that my IFB trauma and like even how it plays into my adult life and all these things that we are trying to pull it back into our political beliefs, our religious beliefs, and all these things. It's very chronological, and it's very like there was one chapter of this big trauma, and it really started out for me with Maranatha and with a lot of my experiences I shared with you guys in one way or another. And then it just snowballed. Mine did snowball out of control, and it was crazy. So yeah, we went to, it was a haven. It was a haven that I don't want to talk about. It gets so weird. I do want to talk about it.
Oh, before you go on, so is Haven related to Thanks to Calvary? I remember you guys mentioning that in the group chat. Are those two related?
Yeah. Okay.
It absolutely was. They were all connected, and I've heard you guys both reference things that are like throwing up light bulbs for me about there. Like Kyrene, you were talking about the colleges, how they do travel with college students, and like they were doing like music and stuff like that. That inspired the idea that they got at the Haven for us to record that CD and travel. And but I did I don't want to call it an opportunity because it was literally a nightmare. But we recorded a CD while I was there, and I joke about it, but it was pretty serious. And we traveled to almost every single like major IFB church that you can think of. I've been there, not probably, I have been there. And then also to a lot of these like really little small churches that just call themselves Baptist churches. And Kyrene, I appreciate your distinction because it is important, but I do want people to know that there are people that are just like going to stop in tomorrow morning, pop into a Baptist church, and they have no idea that it is an IFB church.
Oh, 1,000%.
Some of them don't really, they do distinct, like they make sure that they are separate, but they don't present themselves to the world like that because it is part of blending in plain sight. So then,
you mean how there's like IFB chaplains in the military?
Yeah, exactly. No, exactly. But yeah, I forgot what I was saying here. We traveled to Calvary. I do remember that. I do remember Clearwater. I think we did Clearwater. I went to almost all of those little colleges, and they would just like let us go stay, with families, and we would always have to like give our testimony. And one thing, that stuck out to me about some of the stuff that's coming out is like, how extreme could we make it? Like we always had to have some like grand saves, like when we got saved story. And
they made you fabricate a testimony?
No, they didn't make us fabricate it, but like our daily lives were like, I went over the schedule last night with one of my Haven girls that we all still keep in touch. I mean, like those of us that we can find and that are still living. But like we spent a lot of time in introspect, like just like reading the Bible or like sitting at the table silently, like waiting. What?
Did you say that are still living?
Yeah, I mean, like there are people in these. Yeah, there's girls that are gone. There's girls that have taken their lives, and my bunkmate in particular is who I'm thinking of, and I'm getting nervous talking about it because it was a terrible tragedy. It was a vehicular accident, but I don't know. There's girls that I don't know where they are now, and then there's a small group of us that keep really, really close, pretty close to each other, and over the years. But then each of those are difficult relationships as well, because some of the girls, keep up with these people. They're still involved in the communities, and none of us want to hurt each other. And it gets really political. It gets really gross. We have talked to FBI agents. We have talked to LA reporters from LA and stuff like that. And then every time we get close to doing something like that documentary that came out, like Love's Prayer, anything to really do anything about the Haven that's still going. And so is the Ranch for the Boys. We just kind of collapse into each other in our different ways. So that felt like I went down a rabbit hole there,
No, it's
but
all right. It's all right.
yeah.
And I don't think when TJ earlier you said they made you fabricate your testimony, I don't think that's not what they do. I think it's when you are in those
Thank you,
homes,
guys.
Kayla,
Yeah.
correct me if I'm wrong, in those situations, it's the way in which you hear people tell their testimony, and you hear like the things that they say and the way in which they say it, and like whatever, that when like you do give your testimony, because like I didn't go to any home like that, but my home life was very strict, and I like remember having to give my testimony and stuff sometimes, and it's just the way in which you said it, like it was just told in a more dramatic way.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't like fabricated. It was just not the theatrics, but like
you're right, absolutely right. I mean, like I'm sorry. I was just gonna add that like that's exactly how they did it. It was like they would have one girl that would be like giving you know, some kind of incredible, you know, it was an extreme testimony. There were some of us in there that had some pretty wild stuff. And then that girl would be the next one that would like you know, not have to sit at the table and write Psalms 119 for every demerit she got on Friday night for hours and hours and hours. Yeah, like I can Psalm 119 is burned into my brain. Have you read? Y'all are laughing. Go read Psalm 119. You think it's a psalm because it's not. It's a scary one.
No, I'm laughing.
But that's how that was. It was hellfire and brimstone too. In any context that we were like absorbing, you know, the scripture, like we are, you know, Bible. It was always like, yeah, we would get lifted up, but then we would get like taken way down into the Bible. But we would.
I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing
because
I'm familiar with like writing verses and like when I would do when there would be fine arts competitions and stuff, and it was like Bible quizzing and Bible memorization. So I'm not laughing at you. I know Psalm 119, but I'm like, oh, I remember like having to
like, it's terrible. Like I remember sitting there and being like, God, like what? But so the girl though that gave the most like powerful and wonderful, that moved everybody to tears, scripture or testimony at that particular church that we visited that week, that would be the girl that, you know, just magically didn't have as many demerits that week, or she had the better chores or whatever. And we had a 2-bedroom, you know, there was an apartment on the bottom that had an apartment and a shower down there. But what the girls were living with, we were in a 2-bedroom ranch style house with two bathrooms. The garage that was like kind of renovated or turned into this area where we had bunks on bunks on bunks. And then, so we were also rotating like showers. Everything we did was like survival mode to some degree. So yeah, like even though they didn't have to tell us what to say in our testimony, we just knew. We just knew. Like
So that's so what I wanted to ask. Now you guys don't want to give away too much personal info, I understand, but how did you end up like in like this wait? So yeah, I'm sorry. Like your stories kind of ran together here. So Kai, you just went to like a regular school and regular college, right? Or did you?
Clearwater. I wouldn't call Clearwater regular. I'm sorry.
Regular, but like not a girl's home like Kayla. Not a girl's home like Kayla, right? Okay.
No. So okay. I don't know how my family ended up IFB. My parents didn't go to church growing up, really. I think my dad did, but they were Lutheran. And my mom had a family friend that was a Christian. But like they're like the regular kind of Christian, and I'm really close with like their niece. Like I'm really close with that family still. And they're like the normal type of Christians, as opposed to IFB. So I don't really know how my parents got into it, because I feel like I had a relatively normal childhood until we moved to Georgia. And then we went to a really great Christian school. And then we were pulled out and we went to, like, my parents started going to a home church, and that was hardcore IFB. And then, for September 11th, my dad was gone all the time. So like the pastor's wife of that church, who was a teacher that graduated from BJU, I think, started homeschooling my sister and I. And then like it was like around then that we could only wear skirts. We could only wear, like nothing more than 2 fingers below the collarbone. Like couldn't show your shoulders. Your skirts had to be at least 3 inches past the bottom of your knee so that you weren't showing anything when you sat down. but my home life was really, really strict. So then went back to that Christian school for a year and things were fine. Then we moved to Missouri and they found Maranatha, which is obviously IFB.
Kyrie, do you want to see some of these pictures? Do you want to see these pictures too, by the way? Can I just show them?
Yeah.
No.
And then I will still send you the pictures of it.
It's like,
I
don't
will
know.
send you pictures of it.
Kayla's been waiting for this moment. She likes to throw this up on her social media and remind everyone to be like, look, because she still looks like a dime piece like she did in high school.
And Sarah, y'all, we look so cute. This is us at a father-daughter dance. Look
Piece
at
the modest dresses.
Okay, is this Maranatha?
Yes.
I think so. Yeah,
I don't remember father-daughter dances at Maranatha. That must have came way later. I don't remember.
It
that
wasn't
at all.
a dance; it was a banquet. Kayla, get it right.
Either way,
Dancing
I don't remember that either. Yeah.
Excuse me, I was dancing.
She was not.
No, I wasn't. Okay, this is the one I really wanted to show y'all. This is us at a volleyball game.
Oh my God.
That was me and Kayla.
You're so cute. Okay, I'm sorry, Kyrie. Go ahead.
Where's the one with my sister?
Like. Okay, that's the back of Essence's head.
Oh, the back of her head? Okay.
Yeah, look, there's me and Steve. Look at Shania.
Oh, God, 20 years.
I remember that we used to do
not really 20.
Like we had the banquets, we had the volleyball games, we had all kinds of stuff in that back, like cafeteria. Was it a cafeteria or was it a gym?
Cafeteria.
Was it a gym and a cafeteria? Okay, did
Probably
we have the gym or was that added on later?
That was added on later. Because we remember we would always go in Fort Leonard Wood to use their gym to practice.
Yes. Oh, do you remember we used to have gym class on Fort and we would get to like do the laps and all that stuff.
And you remember we would like stare at the guys because like no one.
Yeah, no, that was my only time that I got to see boys. TJ, I was in that gym. I was ready. I was ready to go to the gym on Fort Leonard Wood. And
PE was mine and Kayla's favorite.
It was my
only the upper track.
Yeah, it was wild. Like this improvising. The school was always just like improvising at all times.
So do you guys remember? So I don't know. Once again, we were in separate eras, but
I know. I'm sorry.
No, for lunch. So I don't know if they kept doing this, but for lunch, when we went to the cafeteria, you could go to the counter and you could buy like chips and candy bars and stuff. But you could also order lunch in the morning. And so like on Monday, you could order from McDonald's and on Tuesday from Taco Bell. Do you remember that? Do you remember them doing that? Yeah.
Oh my God.
And so I didn't mind ordering. Yeah. So I didn't mind ordering like the McDonald's or whatever. But I never ordered the Taco Bell because they had to get it before lunch. Obviously, they go out and get it and then have it ready when they got there. So they would go pick, the orders up at like, I don't know, 11 or something. Then lunch was at 12:30. And so they had to take like this cold taco and reheat it. And so you have hot lettuce and hot tomatoes. Disgusting. And so I couldn't believe when people ordered that stuff from Taco Bell. But that's a weird thing, too, that you wouldn't know.
And that went on for a couple years. That was, I don't remember that really changing a lot until like it was different when I came back to Maranatha, and granted that was like when I came back and it was the new building, but they did that all the time. And I remember do you remember Ethan? That was my buddy. Like we would be very serious. We were very serious about the food and like what days, like we had rotations. We were like swapping tacos. We were like hustling.
Actually, that's funny that you say that. Because it wasn't at Maranatha, it was at my school in Georgia. And I used to I never got to order school lunch or like order out. And in Georgia, we could pick from like Subway, Chick-fil-A, like all these places. And I used to bring MREs to school and I would trade with the boys. And my dad would give me MREs and the boys wanted to eat real Army food. So I would place my order for Chick-fil-A and then like their parents would order Chick-fil-A and I would bring them an MREs. And I would trade it, and I would be like, and they're like, "Can we get real Army food?" And I was like, "Cool,
wow."
I'm gonna Chick-fil-A.
Improvise. You had to do what you had to do.
Okay, all right. I just thought of something. Okay, what? I would be shocked if you guys went through this because I can't believe this happened. I'm even looking back on it happened at least 2 years. So, or at least 1 year, maybe 2. But I remember a field trip. So the school we're talking about, ladies and gentlemen, was called Maranatha Baptist Academy, right outside of Fort Leonard Wood,
Don't send your
Missouri.
kids there.
Don't send 0 out of 10 stars. Would not recommend. And we had a field trip where they took, I think it was junior high and up. I'm pretty sure I was like in 8th or 9th grade when this happened. And they took us for a field trip on post, and we went through the gas chamber. Have you guys ever heard of anything like that? Yes. So I swear on a stack of Bibles this happened. They took us out and they did the whole exercise like you do when you're in basic training. They put you in the gas chamber wearing the gas mask, and so they're breathing. They release the gas. It's CS gas that they release.
Yeah,
Essentially, it's like an aerosol version of bleach, I think, or something like that. But what it does is, I'll tell you, you breathe in the gas mask and you're fine. Then they tell you to take the gas mask off, and then they make you say something, so you have to inhale. And
or like do jumping jacks or like
and it burns your skin or the sweat on your skin. You start to cry, your nose starts to run profusely, and they had us do it. And then you go outside and you cough your guts out. They did this with children. Now,
why?
Looking back
that
on
didn't happen to me. That's the one I missed. I'm really glad I missed that one.
I cannot believe that not only that the school did this, I can't believe the Army let this happen.
Yeah,
I can't.
I was just thinking.
I just can't imagine that was like who cleared that, but it definitely happened. And I need to reach out to other people who were there and ask and try to get to the bottom of this, of like how we can find out who's responsible.
You do.
Yeah, that was look, in a strong field of competition, that is the craziest thing that happened to me while I was at Maranatha Baptist Academy. Yeah, that's wild.
That's pretty bad, TJ. That's really bad. That's pretty bad.
My parents have some explaining to do. A lot.
That is the thing.
They probably didn't even sign a permission slip. It was probably just like
that's true. We probably just took us.
No, they absolutely didn't. They didn't ask our parents. They were like, "You signed up for this. Remember when you got saved? Like, but the thing I do want, like, I think that you brought up something super important just now. And one thing that has always shocked me is that outside of the Haven and Bob Jones, so like girls' home and college, all of my experience in IFB has been directly outside of a military installation. And I don't know if that is calculated. I don't know if that is intentional. But that's my experience. And so my experience was also heightened when my dad was deployed. My stepdad was deployed. Like I'm struggling with this as an adult. Like, and I know we talked about them targeting like families and, like how we talked earlier about how we treated like the bus kids or the kids. Like myself, I was picked up. I was a single mom. My mom, it was just me and my mom and my sister, Courtney, when we first started getting picked up by this. And we were outside of Fort Leonard Wood. So I just think it's really weird. Like, are y'all doing that on purpose? Or, I mean, I know that they're all over the place in the Bible Belt, but I don't know.
I think you're right, because I think that IFB churches thrive outside of military installations because they're so pro first responder, pro military, we support our troops, very patriotic, and all of those are good things. Like, that's not me saying that that's a negative thing, right? Like, especially after the Vietnam War era, vets weren't appreciated and whatever. And I think conservative churches have gone to they're so like pro military, they're so pro everything that like it would make sense for them to like be outside of those, because they're like, we support our troops, we support the military, like we love what they do, like they protect our country and our freedoms, which goes back to other stuff, which all of those are really good things. Like the military should be, like our troops should be supported. Like, and I think for kids who like when they do or when they are outside of military bases, like I think the majority of Maranatha kids are military, like, and all like it was right after the September 11th attack, so all of our parents were deployed all the time and gone, and without our dads there, like
there was definitely a huge turn. Courtney, my sister and I were talking about that last night. There was a huge turn in our experience that was like right, it played into.
Do you remember when we all used to joke that like, because I don't know if you guys got spanked at home, but I did. Do you guys remember when we would joke, and like James was one that joked about it, that like our dads were keeping track of how many like spankings we got when they got back, like on the butts of their rifle. Do you remember like us all joking about how when they came home we were just going to get like punished for this list of things we did wrong?
Yeah.
So first, I want to say, Kayla, screw you for bringing up that point because I never noticed it. I'm very upset that I never caught that connection. It's very good.
It's weird, right?
And I've been thinking about it ever since you said it.
Yeah, I bet you have.
And
the light bulbs in TJ's.
Oh my God, yeah, God. And what I've been thinking, what Kai said, I agree with that. You know, they do have this this culture of you know, respect and what's the word, like genuflection towards anyone in uniform. Basically, it's a sign of discipline. It's a sign of, you know, American exceptionalism and all that. And also, you're dealing with a bunch of people who are separated from their family and their support system. They're in a different state. So, and I thought, and what it hit me really hard because how my family got involved. I don't know if you guys know this at all, but
I want to hear this.
Okay, so so my dad. My dad was I guess is the technical term. My dad is an alcoholic. He hasn't had a drink since 1992, I think. But
incredible. Good for your dad.
Yeah. He had a.
Your dad's the best, though.
My dad is great. I
do remember your dad being so warm, so kind.
Your dad was,
really
he's one of my favorite adults in my teenage years.
All right,
I wanna toot that in, like. And also, your sister introduced Sierra to me. Ask Essence if she remembers, like, busting it down to Sierra.
Sierra?
I had no idea. Thank you.
She know about Sierra.
I'll show
her this clip. So I will say, Essence watches my content all the time on TikTok, and I'm really.
I love Essence. I miss her so much.
She's so great. She's so great.
She's incredible.
Yeah, she's great. So I love it. I always see her. But anyway,
she thought a lot of the IFB stuff was crazy too, because I distinctly remember sometimes she'd be like,
"Yeah,
exactly like that.
Okay,
yeah." My dad had a very big drinking problem. He won't mind me saying this, I'm positive, but I remember being a kid in Germany, and dad would I remember as a kid, me and mom having to carry dad from the car to the house because he was too drunk or whatever. And I remember one time he fell off a banister, down one floor, and he busted his head wide open. He had a bandage he wore for a long time for it. And then one day he got to an accident on the Autobahn, and he blew a 0.35 or something, like he was drinking rocket fuel or something like that. It was bad. And so these days they just kick you out of the army for that. You'd be done immediately. But back then they good old days. Say what?
In the good old days.
In the good old days, yeah. Back when you could drink and drive, back when women knew their place, back when certain folk weren't complaining about how the cops were treating them. So they made him go to AA. And what's that pill you take that makes you vomit if you drink alcohol? I can't remember what it's called.
I don't know what it's called either.
You guys know what I'm talking about, though, right? Yeah. I can't remember what it's called, but he had to take it. No, okay. Well, it's a thing. It's that if you take it, and
it is a thing.
Yeah, it makes your body have a repulsive reaction to alcohol. And he had to go to the commander's office and take that pill every single morning and everything to make sure he's taking it. But anyway, he started going to AA. And when he was in AA, he met this guy. I used to know his name, Ruben something, I think. And the guy was talking to my dad and invited him to church. And we went to Rheinland Baptist Church in Kinsbach, Germany. And we started going to church ever since. And that's how we got involved with the IFB. And so I don't know about you guys, but you probably know I'm a very open about the fact that I'm an atheist. I don't believe in any deities or supernatural beings whatsoever. And I eventually told my parents after a long time or whatever, but I would never try to convince my dad that God doesn't exist, or, giving up on God altogether. He doesn't. They're not they're no longer IFB or conservatives or anything like that, but they still, believe in God. Because I mean, look, I can't argue with results. Hey, the guy picked up the Bible and he would be dead by now if he didn't. Yeah. So, but that's how we got involved. But it's a great example of what you guys are talking about, that, you're separated from the community, and you feel, and if you're in a bad position, and a lot of soldiers don't have a lot of money, a lot of them are having marriage problems, a lot of them are having problems with their kids, a lot of them, like, in the military is just this way. Like, you know, you're away from your family for a year at a time for deployments, 3 or 4 months at a time at school. Like, things aren't great. And so you finally have like something that you can kind of coalesce around, and the church is there to take advantage of that. And also, military, they follow orders. And so like they're very used to a dictatorial command system. I am so goddamn upset that I'm 41 years old. I never made that connection.
I've been thinking about this for like 10 years. Okay, yes.
But also, even like but do you guys remember like the missionaries that like would go overseas, but they would be outside of US military bases overseas?
I think I saw that a couple times. I never noticed the pattern, but I think I never checked too much into it, I guess.
We know what TJ is going to do this afternoon.
I was gonna say, I think it's definitely like worth checking. I don't know, but like I do remember like hearing particular, you know, like, yeah, you know, what were they called? Ministry trips? Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah, but they would go, and I do remember like sometimes there was always like some weird other reasons, you know, to be going to whatever particular place that they went. That was a trend that I think
it was always funny whenever you had someone who was a missionary to like Great Britain or something. What? That was always weird when you saw that. Okay. You know, that was like, really? You need to be it's like and what this is something I did catch as a kid. They always had the slideshows they would bring to show every Wednesday or whatever. And they all had this. It's like they went to a school for this. And they said, you know, Glastonbury, England only has, you know, it has 100,000 people, but there are only 2 Christian churches, or they had a term they used, that Bible believing churches. They would always yes, that's what they would say. And I was like, wait a minute, hold on. But by your definition, I'm sure there's a lot more churches than that. They would always pull that shit.
I think that's part of it, though. I think, like, earlier I said I want to make the like distinction between like Christians and IFB, right? But I think that's because in the IFB, like, I won't speak for you guys, but how I was raised, like, if you didn't use King James only, if you didn't believe exactly what the IFB believed, you weren't actually a Christian. Like, their definition of like Christianity was just King James only. Let me shove the Bible down your throat. Women don't have a place except for to serve their husbands. Like, and that stupid umbrella theory.
They'll like tear you up for like not just the versions of the Bible, the King James version versus the what was the other one that was really
the
big?
NSV or like the Remember Holman Christian Standard. I think now it's like the Christian Standard Bible. Yeah, and so I think like it's not even, which is why, you know, like I'm still a Christian. I still believe in God. I go to church. I just believe in a very different style of Christianity than like cult extremism, whatever. So I think that, because I mean, growing up now, like looking at the church that I go to and like what my relationship with God and what I believe looks like, how I was raised, that wouldn't look like being a Christian to me. Like that wouldn't look like,
no,
like if 15-year-old me could go back and be like, well, you're not saved. You don't read the King James Version.
Yeah.
You don't wear skirts only. You are working and you're not married and you're 32. Oh no, you're problematic. So I think I think that that's part of it too, when it comes to like, they don't think anything else is a Christian. So like, while there's probably Christian churches in England, they're like Bible believing. Oh, well,
right. Yeah, not the right
if
style.
You don't meet this list of like requirements, then well, sorry, you're not a Christian.
Not a Christian. Yeah. So I'm gonna wrap it up here real quick.
My
talk
kids
about.
Are, they're like, you're done. You're done.
No. It's that. So you do. I hate to tell you, you do this for a while, but no, it's like after an hour and a half. That's like the sweet spot for like an hour and a half where the conversation's productive, because then you could talk more, but it just starts to ramble. So and I want more to talk about next time, and there will be a next time. But we have I want to close up about the missionaries, because like these are really fun people to talk about. When the missionaries had come we lost Kayla. Oh no.
I think it's just for a second. I think she's being a mom.
Yeah, she's still here, but it doesn't.
You can cut this part out. Also,
Yeah.
you should probably cut out the part
Oh, there's
where
Sorry,
I'm sorry.
I started telling
No, I had to break
where
my
I
kids
started
up.
telling how my family got in the IFB, because then we derailed, so we can save that next time, and like the comparisons between how Kayla was raised and how I was raised / the Haven, because if not, people are going to be real confused.
Oh,
nothing
I'm
exciting.
sorry.
We're cutting this part out.
Okay.
Yeah,
We're done. We're done. I'm sorry.
No.
Yeah.
So I was talking about the missionaries. A couple things that I noticed with the missionaries was they came in and they would they would ask for money and everything. They always had a slideshow. They always had a song they played at the end of the slideshow. And one thing that so before you hopped on, Kayla, Kai and I were having a discussion. How do we even get into it? But we talking about Marxism. I don't know how we started talking about it, but we ended up going.
Oh, we were talking about how
Okay.
how we both have so much to do, like when we get off of work, that
that's
you're like
right.
still working, but work at home makes you feel productive.
That's right. That's right. So Kai had mentioned. She asked how I was doing, and I said, "Yeah, I got elected this weekend." And then she mentioned the same, and I was like, "Yeah." And I saw this. I don't know if you've seen the crying hamster memes that have been going around, and I saw a really funny one where the hamster was like in a cubicle and was sitting there thinking, it's Friday. Oh, I can't wait to go home and get away from work. And then it goes home, does dishes, like does laundry. It's like, starts cooking. It's like, oh yeah, you never really stop working. And then Kai mentioned that she's like, yeah, that's true. But when she does housework, she feels accomplished. Like it actually feels good to get it done. But you don't have that feeling at work, or generally people don't have that feeling at work. And I mentioned how, I talk about Marxism, and then I went into the long thing about, you're lucky you missed out on this, Kayla, about a dialectical materialism.
I
and
don't feel lucky. I want it.
Yeah, and how people are say what?
Gary's face. No, continue. I'm dying.
Oh, I see it. But I'll see in the replay. But talk about how we a lot of people have jobs that they only work because they need the job to survive. They have no connection with the job. It's not like they're actively involved in the project. It's just something that, and you stand in one place and turn the wrench like off 8 hours a day, and they hate it. You don't feel good about it. And so, but I want to talk about the first run-in I ever had with Marxism before I even knew what Marxism was from a missionary. And I remember him telling a story about how, I don't know where he was, but he said that he had like a little plot of land and he wanted to grow some food on the land. It was in the middle of nowhere or something. So he hired some of the indigenous people to come help him plant all
of course he did.
Yeah. So but it gets good. This is where it gets good. So they plant the crops or whatever. And then, a season passes by, the plants grow, and he goes out to pick the fruit, and all the natives show up and start picking the fruit. And he goes, hey, what are you guys doing? And they're like, we're picking. He's like, but this is mine. He goes, what do you mean it's yours? We planted it. And they didn't have like this capitalistic concept of like, oh, this is yours. Here is, it
was like not even believable to them that he would think that was his.
Right.
Because,
yeah. They thought he was insane.
Them planting it. Yeah.
Like, why should you get this shit? Yeah. You gave me, $1 to plant this, but I did plant it. You're telling me I could. And it's amazing how strange that concept is to Americans or people in the Western Hemisphere, when that's mostly how human society works. If you did the work, you reap the benefits of it, but that's not how it works anymore. And that's one thing. That was my first introduction to Marxism 10 years before I knew what Marxism was. And also, I know a more fun one is, do you guys remember how often missionaries would talk about the miraculous experiences they had in these obscure nations? Like the more remote the society, the more likely you were to get
the more
a story.
Weird it got.
I know, right? And so yeah, you guys living here in central United States, you're never going to see a miracle. But I tell you what, if you were in Equatorial Guinea, you'd see it all the time. So
let me tell you,
yeah, that really annoyed me, because I was like, okay, I don't know if I believe you guys. I think you guys just kind of making this up. But the missionaries were pretty fun. Like, you guys remember any weird missionary shit?
I have to think about it.
Yeah, I got you on the spot there.
Yeah, but like we'll have to make that a subject.
Yeah, we will.
We had a lot of missionaries that came and worked with, especially with the Haven girls and stuff like that. That they love to.
Yeah,
they were a fun group.
Churches love their missionaries.
They did.
Yeah.
They did. But all right, we're gonna wrap it up, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us. There's gonna be several of these. A lot. And in fact, we first, well, I guess Kayla had this idea of like making this an actual podcast by itself, like, and we might end up doing that. I mean, why not?
Should.
Yeah, I mean, why not? Like,
it's a whole thing.
I didn't. This is before I could figure out any of this shit. If I hadn't done anything like this before, but now I do it all the time, and so like it's gonna be pretty easy. And so
I don't do any of this shit except for run my mouth. So that's why I want to do this with you.
Oh, it's great. Yeah, I was lucky enough to be invited onto a podcast with people who knew what they were doing, middle of last year. And I've kind of like through osmosis kind of figured this shit out. I've actually gotten too much into this now because I do that podcast. I do my stuff on YouTube. I do TikToks and I do these lives. And so I'm kind of like overloading it. But I love talking. So it's fine. It doesn't really feel like work. But we'll out here. We'll appreciate you guys and we'll get at you later. I'll go ahead and end the recording and we can debrief.
Bye.